Thank you very much for this opportunity, and this is representing the people who were involved very heavily in Colombia with the debate and the dialogue that happened in Bogota, together with the Ministries of Foreign Relations, Ministry of Prosperity, and the new Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development, and some of the key strategic sectors, private sector, and sub-national city level, when we're talking about our constituencies. It was very interesting. So I think a couple of the messages that came from Colombia do relate to what Mel has been saying, and Andrew as well, in terms of the framing. Colombia was, as we know, in Rio +20, actually showed a leadership in saying, we think there should be sustainable development goals. Together with Guatemala, they put the proposal on the table and said there should be sustainable development goals. Why? You know, and that's a big question. And in the dialogue that they just had, they said, for those to be important, you need to actually see that at the national level something's already happening. You know, we actually need to see that this is important to have this kind of framework at the national level. And when they put forward the Sustainable Development Goals, as you were saying, there was this landing point about climate change, they didn't include climate change in their initial proposal. And then what happened, the extreme weather event, 2010 and 2011 in Colombia, that showed that their pathway as an emerging economy was not sustainable, was not resilient, and they were falling off a very steep cliff unless they were going to look at how they could be resilient. The floods knocked back economically as well as socially, but it was the economic part of this that affected them so severely that then nationally what happened in the 2010-2014 National Development Plan, the three key pillars were address unemployment, address poverty alleviation, and address climate change. And then in the re-election of President Santos for his second term, he aligned the post-conflict peace process with sustainable development and the health of the environment and the ecosystem services and climate change, and said that peace and the sustainability of the peace process that they're engaging, and he was elected in about taking peace forward with the FARC guerrillas, that this was also about inseparable climate change from their development pathway, so at the national level. And that, so you'd say, well, what's the leadership, institutions, mandate to say this is happening? So they create the institutions, they change it. We have Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development, and they have the Ministry of Prosperity, where they say poverty is multidimensional. And we don't think the SDGs around poverty is getting that right yet, how we are measuring what poverty alleviation is and what prosperity is. And that's what they discussed quite in a very rich way around that. And they have found in Colombia that the climate-compatible development discourse, the way of addressing climate-compatible development, is helping them address the way you can talk about this climate and development. President Santos's re-election campaign says, Colombia, sostenible, compatible con el clima y el medio ambiente. Colombia, sustainable and climate compatible. A president re-election linking the peace agenda to climate compatible development. We've just launched with CDKN in Cartagena. After 4 years, very difficult work, but the mayor has just launched the city adaptation plan as the competitive and climate compatible city of the future, linking competitiveness and development with climate resilience in a very vulnerable city. So why are they interested in the SDGs and the framework? Because they want measurements. And they want those measurements that are nationally and subnationally aligned, because they're interested in measuring not only advances, but they're invested in measuring bottlenecks and gaps. They want to be able to have all these silos. They've got the green growth, they're doing the green growth agenda to get into OECD, they've got the SDGs, they've got the climate and biodiversity, they've got the UNFCCC, climate, the adaptation mitigation. They want to be able to look at these in an integrated way and actually align them with their goals at national and subnational level. And the critical thing here will be, as they go into the post-conflict scenario, they're going to address transformation. When we talk about transformation in terms of structural change, part of this is about the redistribution in terms of land and rural development. That's what's going to be happening now. They're going to assimilate the rebel movement into politics and the administration, and they're going to look at what happens in rural development. And they want to know how you get climate resilient rural development in the biggest structural changes in the country going forward. So how does the framing, and they say what they want from is they want not necessarily the goals, they're interested in the indicators that are nationally relevant, that they can choose, that can help them develop their framework for this new rural development agenda, and then they can measure against that. And that's why it's important and interesting, and that's where they see the climate part of that as indivisible. Interestingly, they say, well, not a mitigation target, but the climate part of the Sustainable Development Goals, that indicator level should be about the how you bring climate resilience into that. Was their challenge. So a little bit of sharing from there.